Welcome to NAIFA's Advisor Today podcast series, where we focus on how financial advisors work, live, and give to their local communities and our greater financial services industry. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Advisors Today's podcast, where we feature the top minds in the financial services industry and brought to you by a wonderful NAIFA. And I'm here with our wonderful co-host, Suzanne Caruana. Hi, Suzanne.
Hey, Chris.
So good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So Suzanne, before we get going today with our wonderful guest, would you be so kind to tell us who our sponsor is for today's?
Sure, we'd be happy to. So back in Q4, we underwent a transition to include the Society of Financial Service Professionals into the NAIFA family, and they are now our professional development arm. And under that arm, we have recently re-released the Life Underwriting Training Certified Fellowship, the LUTCF course, and we are now actively enrolling people within that. Also have a new mentor component in there, and our guest happens to hold the LUTCF herself, so we might get into that a little bit. But this episode is sponsored by FSP's LUTCF program.
Wonderful, Suzanne. Would you also, since you're so kind, would you be so kind to introduce today's guest?
I would be delighted to. So I'm happy to introduce Jill Judd. She's one of our past national presidents of NAIFA. She has been an illustrious figure, and I was happy enough when I came into NAIFA, was probably the first person I really worked with from a volunteer leadership level. I'm sure Jill can go into her background, but Jill is a State Farm agency owner and holds the LUTCF and the FSS. Is that right, Jill?
That's correct. And a couple more.
And a couple more. Yeah, of course. You all have.
We'll talk about
it. and Jill is coming to us from California, also an athlete. And Jill's been instrumental in giving me a lot of good mindset tips over the years. So happy to have you, Jill.
I am so happy to be here. Hi, Suzanne. Chris, nice to be here.
So Jill, you know, we started this podcast almost 2 years. I mean, it's been a long time. It's almost 2 years. And we've had very few, let's call it presidential people on our podcast. So thank you so much for, number one, the service that you've given to the industry. And thank you so much for leading from the front in everything you do. So with that being said, I'm sure there's questions that people have about kind of who you are and how you got started. So would you share with us a little bit about how you ended up in the financial services industry? Like, how did you end up doing this? Because I'm sure there was a lot of things you could have done, right? How did you end up?
Yeah, in fact, there were a lot of things I did do. This was not the direction, of course. When I was 20, I knew I wanted to have my own business, and I started an advertising and marketing firm. And I did that because I really wanted to have time and flexibility with my daughter. And I just, knew that being out there and making things happen was where I wanted to be in the world. And I did that for 15 years. And what's really funny, I was thinking about technology today, and it sort of took me back to how the art world changed. And when I started in advertising, we were doing things by hand. We were doing press type, and we were on a drawing board. We were setting type on a long strip machine. And 15 years progressed, and the technology really took off. And this was right about the time where PageMaker came in, and some of those other pretty powerful software tools. And I knew I didn't want to be on a computer. I wanted to be hands-on the project. So I was looking for something else to do, and I went back to school, Chris. I'd always wanted to get my fine arts degree, and I went back and studied art history and fine art. And when I got out of school, I was thinking, okay, well, what do you do with all of this now? And I was still leaning toward the marketing piece. That was something that was always really interesting to me, but how do I get away from the marketing? Well, you can't. Let's just put it out there. You can't, and Suzanne knows this. You can never get away from the marketing. But my husband is a State Farm agent. He's a 50-year agent right now with State Farm. And he said, look, you're right between things. You're trying to figure out where you want to go. Come on over and I'll take you to lunch. And I was in his office, his State Farm office, and the phone started ringing. And the phone's ringing, I picked it up, and I just made my way through the day. And at the end of the day, I said, "You never really told me you get to connect with people in such a real way. And this is amazing." And he said, "Hey, come back tomorrow and I'll take you to lunch again." So this went on for about a week. And by the end of the week, I was telling him, have you thought about doing this sort of marketing piece? And have you thought about reaching out to your clients and doing, spreading it out and maybe doing some pivoting? And he looked at me and he said, "Look, go get your own." So that's how it started. I went right to State Farm and I said, "I am ready to look into this opportunity." And they loved the background with the marketing. I've always been a knock on doors, pick up the phone kind of person. That's never bothered me at all. And that's how I found my way to State Farm, and how I found my way to NAIFA. And I just want to tag this in because it was so closely aligned because it happened right when I started. I knew I did not have a background in insurance nor financial services. And there was an advertisement in the paper. Tells you how long ago that was because we don't really even have those anymore. But they said there's a NAIFA meeting going on down the street. If you're a professional insurance or financial advisor, you should be here. And I said to myself, "You know nothing about this industry. Go hang out with people who know about this industry." And that was right when I started. After I opened my doors to this office, and I'm still here 25 years later, loving life every day.
So, in somewhat, the industry kind of chose you, but you really kind of chose the industry too. So let's go a little bit further. So, obviously, it took a period of time for you to start. It's not just you wake up one day and the phone rings off the hook, right? So it took you a period of time to start. We have a lot of new advisors out there. If you were starting in today's times, knowing with your marketing background, what would be the best way for a new advisor to start? Or some people that have been in the business a while, they need to restart, to shut it down, restart, and do it over again. So I think we could always learn something from a marketing mind of how would you start today with technology moving as fast as it's moving.
Yeah, and you just said the magic word right there, and it's technology. You have to embrace the technology because it allows you to scale your business. It allows you to build efficiencies you could never build before. When we were doing things out of rate books and on microfiche, these are mechanisms that worked for the time. But right now, when I look at something like the client management systems we have that can allow you to really dig into your statistics and figure out what you're doing, what your team's doing, how you're doing it, what opportunities you're missing. I think embracing technology right out of the gate is really critical. But the other piece is more of an emotional side. And Chris, I'm a real believer in positive self-talk and showing up and expecting the best of yourself. And I think what really throws people when they first get into this industry is it's not a realistic expectation. They might look at someone like you and say, "I want that success and I'd like that today." And rather than giving yourself a bit of a runway and saying, "Hey, I'm in this and I'm in this for the long haul. I'm going to do what it takes." I mean, when I was in high school, I worked for my dad and he was a bricklayer. I worked for him as a hod carrier. So just to give you an idea for people who don't know what that is, I would mix the mud and carry the bricks to him. And if I didn't have them there on time, we were losing precious moments of getting the bricks laid and the cement was hardening. And it was a timing issue. So it was always about show up on time, be there, make the thing happen, and anticipate the need. So as a new advisor, you've got to anticipate your own need. And part of it is going to be a sacrifice of time, and that's okay. So just let people around you know. I mean, I can remember being in this office till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't feel bad about it. My family knew. I took a break. We went and had dinner. We might have done some other things in between time, but I knew that the joy and the fun was creating the business. You're creating this thing, and it takes a diligent effort. I think people, it's sort of unfortunate that there is sometimes I think people they just want the good stuff right away without the
Oh, yeah.
sacrifice. And the sacrifice is the joyful part. That's what really binds you to the business and to the people, that you have, you gave some things up to have this. So then when you're sitting back, and Suzanne and I were talking, just prior to the podcast about walking on the beach, I'm on the beach every day. I can do that now. I can do that now because I sacrificed the time in the first couple of years. That's really important. You've got to give up some things.
So, the beach, huh? That's kind of nice. Get the chance to walk on the beach and thinking about your business. I mean, that's how they paint the picture. When you start off in the business, the picture is painted that you will be this one day. But what they don't tell you is that all the repetition and the disciplines necessary for you to accomplish that is something to behold. So, Suzanne mentioned the fact, and again, you've had a pretty good background connecting in the sports world, right? And so Suzanne talked a little bit about that. Will you tell us kind of a little bit about your background, how it connects to sports, and perhaps how sports and the mental discipline when training potentially helped you specifically in an industry like ours?
Absolutely. I was raised with 3 brothers, so I almost don't need to say much more than that. But when you get your butt kicked by 3 brothers, you really learn how to find your way on the field or on the track or on the court. And I am so thrilled that I was raised with these tough boys, because I just really learned how to find my own grit and find my strength in my physical strength. And I think for a young girl at the time I was growing up, having physical strength and ability wasn't as celebrated as it is now. But in my family, it was. So we never really thought twice about it, which was pretty nice. I did it all. I played all the sports: softball, basketball, volleyball, track. Track is what I loved the most. And when I'm going to just sort of fast forward, because I played through school. I didn't go to college right out of high school, so I can't talk about college ball or anything I played there. But when I started this business, and I'm going to take this back to the marketing piece, I understand that you've got to find your way around other people, new people, fresh faces who you haven't talked to before. That's part of it. So what I started doing was volunteering and participating in activities that got me around new people. And an example would be, I started coaching with Team in Training. I did 9 seasons with them. So we're not only raising money for cancer for kids, leukemia and lymphoma, but I was also coaching people how to be a better athlete, how to run a marathon, how to do a triathlon, and things of that nature. And so I got the coaching piece, I got the athletic piece because I could show up for the races and do my own race. But then I also was finding all these new connections for people who are now my customers. And I didn't go up to them and say, hey, I'm in insurance and you should be my person, or I should be your person, you should be my customer. We just connected and they saw the kind of person I was. And that's what I think was really important. I spent 35, 36 years doing triathlon, up through the Ironman distance. And anytime you're doing a endurance sport, so Ironman is a pretty long event. You're out there all day. And I'm not a front of the pack person. I am a mid pack, kind of making my way through it. And I had a couple of professional coaches who are still friends of mine today. And they used to say, they would say, I might be done in 9 hours with this Ironman triathlon. But for you people who are out there for 10, 12, 14 hours, we as professionals can't even understand how you have the fortitude to do that. They couldn't do that, is what they tell you. And of course, we're looking at the other side and saying, trust me, if I could get it done in 9 hours, baby, I would do it. But I can't. So it's really about taking it 1 mile at a time, 1 step at a time. And the funny thing is, the longer the race, the shorter that distance gets. And for me, by the end of an Ironman, I'm on the run. We're now finishing this race, this all-day race with a marathon. It went from you can do anything for 3 miles to you can do anything for 1 mile to look, just 3 minutes on the clock and then another 3 minutes. And then it was one step at a time. And so you find yourself, you sort of got this big, broad view that you sort of start dialing it down. But that's really what this is. This business is not a sprint. You're going to have sprinting moments. I'm in property and casualty. So, when the wildfires hit for California, that's a sprinting moment. We've got to be on the phone and with our customers and out on the field and helping with claims. That's a sprint. But if you want to be in it for the long haul, it's a marathon. You got to get your miles in. You got to get your calls in. You've got to do it over a longer period of time and have an expectation that if you don't do the work, the results won't come.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the Ironman. Bike, swim, or the marathon? Which part is harder?
Yeah. Well, it depends on where you come from, honestly. It's funny. I come from a running background, and the marathon seemed to be harder for me. Maybe it's a body type thing. I'm not really sure. I can tell you the swim for me is just majestic. And I didn't come from a swimming world. There's something so beautiful about being in open water. I'll tell you about one of the last Ironman races I did up in Lake Tahoe. It snowed the night before. Lake Tahoe is up in the Sierras of California. The water was probably, they think, maybe 47 degrees. It was cold. It was cold.
Tub. Yeah, cold tub. Yeah.
And we're standing on the beach. All the athletes line up and take off at the same time. And you could look down one side and you could look down the other, and you knew everybody there who was towing the line did what they needed to do to show up. You get in the water and you're looking out at snow-covered mountains and the steam coming off of this water. And you're in it for, 2.4 miles. You're in it for a while, right? But you keep, every time you're taking a stroke and looking and catching the snow on the mountains, and you're thinking, wow, I am so lucky to be here. This is beautiful. The bike for me is the easiest. I love cycling. I've got good legs. And it's, I love hilly courses. I love doing that sort of grinding work. That's really fun. But I'm going to say the marathon is the toughest for me. For a light, lean, super chill runner, it's probably not that difficult. But yeah, I'm going to hold firm to that one.
So when you think about the Ironman, you mentioned how you compartmentalize and segment the pieces so that you can accomplish the things necessary. What's next, right? And so when you think about our business, I'm going to kind of take that and now go back to this is women's. It's the Women's Appreciation Month. I know it's women's. What
history.
Is it?
Women's history.
Okay, so I have a question, and the question is one that you can answer from being in different roles. How does the fortitude for the Ironman help you with this business when it's predominantly dominated by 98% men? And then what would you say to the young women advisors out there who I said before, even on stage, I said they are the future of what financial services is. We look at the statistical data, whether it's on the sales side and or the client side. Numerous reasons. One, we don't live as long, and two is we make bad decisions. So, and that's statistical data. I mean, it is what it is. So when we start to break that down, though, there's parallels there that I think seem to me like they would help you, but I can't speak for you because I've never walked in your shoes. So can you share with us that journey of kind of preparation and how the fortitude has helped you navigate a space that predominantly hasn't been navigated either ever before or new, and how you were able to utilize those skills you learned?
Yeah, I find this to be one of the most interesting parts of this industry in that it can be a fit for anyone. So I just want to let you know that coming at this first with that perspective says you can find your place, male, female, or other. Whatever it is you want to do in this world, in the financial services and insurance world, you can find a space to exist. I think for me, maybe sport wasn't the piece that determined whether or not I could handle this business. Although having the tenacity to get through a difficult challenge like a race is really key. It's a key component, but you can find tenacity in a lot of other ways. So I don't think you necessarily have to come from there. And I'm not saying that that's what's being intimated. I think for women, because women are keenly skilled at multitasking and keenly aware of emotional intelligence and emotional components of other people. Men too, but it functions a little differently. And I can honestly say my only, if I were to have taken a survey, I can say my husband, who's a 50-year agent and a male in a male-dominated industry, we talk about this all the time. How is it different for him? Well, the runway was set. It was pretty easy. Just come on in, do the things, and we'll give you a leg up. As a woman, you sort of have to find where you're going to fit. And you've got to, in some ways, I hate to say this, but tolerate some of those moments that are cringeworthy. And there will be some where you're thinking, oh my gosh, have we not evolved beyond this yet? Are we still talking like that? So that does happen. But you've got to keep, in some way, you've got to keep the focus on the fact that once you get your footing in this industry, all bets are off. For a woman, it allows you time for your family, time for yourself, intellectual stimulation. If you become one of those women who most typically are the caretakers of the children and the caretakers of the parent, surprisingly, you'll have economic vitality that will allow you to find your way between those two worlds. It will allow you time. You can come into your office in the morning. You can leave and go take care of your parents who need additional care. I wish it were different. It would be really great if we had a 50-50 split and, men were taking care of, the mom and the daughter was taking care of the mom as well, that sort of thing. But that's not what I see. And so that's okay. That's okay. This industry provides such an incredible space and opportunity for a woman to exist, to feel powerful, to feel nurturing, to have an impact on people. And I think for women, that's important. For men, and I hope this doesn't sound like I'm sort of putting us both in these separate worlds, because I don't mean it that way. But I think for men, it's about finding purpose. And for women, it's really about finding connection. And, I keep sort of leaning over and looking as if I have a client sitting here. I'm thinking for everyone that comes in my office, I get an opportunity to have an impact on their future, their current life, their children, their parents, their finances, how they're going to navigate when something really bad happens. That just feels like such an incredible role to me. The sport was just a jumping off point for me, really, and really taught me how to be focused, how to suffer. Yeah, I've suffered, trust me. When I was doing long distance trail races and losing toenails and, bleeding feet and disgusting things that people don't typically want to talk about, you just forged ahead because you knew the goal. And that's what this is about. You forge ahead, know the goal, or as most people say now, know your why. Why are you here? Why do you want to do this? And selfishly go after it. Go after that thing because you deserve to have it.
So, Jill, I have a question. So I love the phrase you used, economic vitality. So when you're sitting down, can you talk to us a little bit when you're one, building rapport with your clients. Do you have any tips there to do that faster? But do you bring that concept up about economic vitality? Like, it sounds to me like you're setting that goal with the end in mind, like begin with the end in mind, kind of an idea with the clients about get to this economic vitality part, which I love. That's even more exciting to me than like financial security, because it's, the vitality. And how are you getting that? How are you setting that in their head? So you put them on that path.
This is going to track with an earlier comment about, I got to think about what the earlier comment was. It'll come to me in a second, but recreating yourself, right? Chris, you had mentioned something about sort of recreating. Let me tell you what happened in California, and I'm going to get to economic vitality because this is the lead in. In California in the last 3 years, we've had massive wildfires, flooding, just some crazy, crazy storm situations. And almost a year ago now, not quite a year, most of the insurance companies, we're talking big name insurance companies, Farmers, Allstate, people pulled out of the insurance market in California. Well, State Farm didn't at that time. We were holding fast. And what was really great was our phone was ringing off the hook. People were getting canceled left and right, and they were calling. We're like, oh, this is great. This is like the fish were jumping in the boat. So we were loving life. And then State Farm said, we've got to stop writing fire business. Oh, whoa, hold on a second. Okay, well, as anyone who's already in this business knows about the residuals. So we're lucky. We still have flow. We've got income flow, and that's cool. But what we decided was we wanted this year to look different. How could we recreate who we are and what we do for our customers? Because there is no telling how long we'll have this moratorium on fire business. And for those not in property and casualty, fire business is inclusive of homeowners, renters, condominium, condo owners, business owners, personal liability umbrella policies, personal articles. So it's like a pretty big amount of things that we can no longer write. So we decided, let's recreate who we are to our customers. This is going to allow us to reach out to every single one of them in light of the things that are happening in the state. And so we decided we were going to position ourselves rather than as your property and casualty agent. We are going to position ourselves as your risk advisor. And I'm not saying we didn't think about it that way before, but we were very deliberate about, and this was with my team. We decided, can we do this? Can we reposition ourselves to become life insurance agents? Okay, that was a big deal for us because we weren't writing a lot of life insurance. Quite frankly, we didn't need to. Okay,
Yep.
So we decide, okay, can we do this? We're now in March. We're just a couple days into March. My birthday month, by the way, in case anyone cares, wants to send a card. But hey, and Cindy in my office went off and got life licensed. Boom, got it done while she's in school and working here. We have, let's see, since January 1, I personally have met with over 75 customers to reposition and talk about things from the position you mentioned, Suzanne, which is economic vitality. That becomes more inclusive. Now it's not just talking about how do we take care of you if the bad thing happens.
Right.
If your house burns down, if your kid crashes the car. We're being not only expansive in our own mentality of who we are, but we're now telling our customers, this is a different office. And we're inviting you in because we want to share with you how we are a different office. And we'd love to come in. We'd love to, absolutely, we'll come in. And I'm thinking, oh, this is cool. Because we were we were sort of on autopilot. I'll put it out there because this happens mid-career. The checks keep coming in and, you can get on autopilot, no problem, right? And we decided, we didn't want to do that. We wanted to play a different game. So we're playing a different game this year. And it's not only energizing for our customers, it's energizing for us as a team. And so that, that whole, like, how can you recreate yourself? Yeah. And that goes back to the beauty of this business. Well, what do we want to be today? How do we want to be perceived now? I went and got my CLU. I just got that designation February 1st. So, it's sort of like, okay, if you're going to do this, get in the game.
All in.
Get your game. study with the best, learn what you need to know, and elevate yourself in the profession. And you can do that anytime. Isn't it great? And I can still walk on the beach.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
When you think about your team, you mentioned your team. I played sports in college and high school, and I came from that team environment. How do you inspire, lead your team to do more than what their comfort zone is? We're talking about comfort zone. So I'm asking someone who kind of has been outside the comfort zone, kind of lives, especially in an Ironman. Let me just tell you, my Ironman is in my kitchen, like cooking something with iron skillet. That's my Ironman. I would call myself an elite athlete. That's a different animal. Okay. But to lead, first you have to lead yourself, obviously. But the ability to lead others to accomplish more than they think they can do or get outside their comfort zone. How have you been able to kind of do that during your career?
Yeah, this is brilliant. And I love a question like this because since we're all strong, typical leader types that go into this type of industry, because you got to be pretty gritty, you got to go after the stuff, right? There is an expectation that your team will see that you're motivated and you're making things happen, and they're going to go, wow, I want a piece of that. But the reality is you've got to know who your team is. Each one, you have to know who they are as individuals. And I don't mean what drives them. I know we had this thing years ago where we would talk about, ask the people who work for you, what would motivate you? Do you want money? Do you want to get your nails done? Do you want okay. No, find out who they are in their heart, find out who they are at their core, find out what kinds of things they love to do, not with regard to the business, but when they're sitting with a customer. Wow. So I have a gentleman who works for me, Kyle. He's been with me 23 years. That's a long haul.
Yeah,
And
Kyle's still there.
Yeah. And Cindy's been with me over, oh gosh, I don't even know, 18 years. I can probably go ask her right now. It's a family. It is family. We love each other. We care about each other. In fact, Kyle and I have been encouraging Cindy to go back to school, and she's back in school now. And she's like, wow, who was it? Maybe Norm Levine, who said, you've got to help other people get what they want in order for you to get what you want. Well, I think a lot of people have said that probably, but going back to how do you motivate them? How do you get them to a place where they want to do the stuff? Well, you don't. You let them get there. And so what we do, I'll give you an example for how we're running this year. Before I even made the decision that we're going to reframe who we are and what we're doing, we had a get together. What do you guys think of this? How does it feel to you? Does it seem like something you could do? Would you want to do this? And allow them to have the input into that sort of conversation, because what is driving them is different. And what I found with Kyle is it's not so much, yay, I did an application, that doesn't charge him. But it's when someone says something about him, wow, I really loved the way he gets a Google review. Gosh, I loved working with Kyle. He is so genuine and so caring. And that would just make him go, wow, yeah, and Cindy, for her, she's looking at all the analytics and she's going, all right, guys, we can do it. We got 3 over here, we got 10 over there. Like, look at us, we're going. And so she's starting to look at the technology of it and sort of the business end. Like, where did that come from? We wouldn't have thought of that, and so that then charges me thinking, okay, so I'm going to just fuel those fires, right? I want to keep giving them what they're after, because that just makes it more fun for sure.
Unleash them. Little love tanks are full. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's true. A lot of times the businesses, sorry, Chris, just real quick, a lot of times what I do love about financial services is the creativity in the jobs and that flexibility and that ownership of time to allow you to do that. Because so many times jobs are overly prescriptive and restrictive, and the person cannot actually unleash any of those pieces. I feel that they can't. Like, I have a person on my team, and I said, listen, we're doing membership now. Okay. So your job is to talk to as many people as you possibly can. about NAIFA. That's your job. Any format, like go out, open the door and go. And she's been stuck behind a desk and a computer now. And she's super, super affable, gregarious. And you just watched her. She was like, and so every day she's, but that's what that's what she's naturally, that's what fuels her. And so I think I agree with you that identifying and unleashing, but I do think that financial services has that latitude that's built in.
Totally.
That latitude, that entrepreneur.
Without a doubt. And the creativity. And what's really, so this is interesting. About a week ago, might have been a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, they were working on a case together, my two team members, and we have another who's on maternity leave now, but, and Kyle had run one all the way from start to finish, right? And this older woman couldn't get the signature thing working on her computer, right? Technology snafu. Cindy grabbed her computer. She ran out the door. She went over to the lady's house and held her hand. She didn't do anything for her. She just helped her make the sign. Kyle makes the sale. Cindy goes, "Hey, we're a team. There's nothing. He gets a sale. He gets the little, tchotchke that we put on the wall or whatever." And she says, "I don't need that. That's not what this is about. We're a team. We all support each other." That's big. I love that stuff.
Bought in. Yeah, bought in. Yeah, that's great. The companies need to, I just think between the companies and then the schools, they don't talk about that aspect of the business enough. The creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship kind of elements of this, career.
And let's touch on that. Let's touch on the creativity of the business, because I think this is, for me, this is everything. I mean, obviously I come from an art background. I've been making art since I was a kid. Anything that we can do that is creative, and sales is creative. Most people don't realize this unless you're in it. But if you were to go out and say to someone who is a musician or an artist or a mathematician, doesn't matter, could be anything, and you say, "Wow, how would you like to work in a field where you have full range to build the thing however you want to build it, to be compensated fairly for what you do, and to enjoy the people you work with?" That's simple, right? That seems pretty simple. That's just about everybody I know in NAIFA.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't stay in the business if you're hating it. And we don't explain so much that the creativity it takes to sit down and talk to a person and listen to them is massive. Well, it's easy for us to talk. Obviously, we're, it's what we're paid to do in some sense. But to be able to listen and discern where people are coming from and what's important to them and where they want to be in 10 years and how they ended up here, what happened 20 years ago that got them to this place. That takes a creative mind. It really does. And you've got to be able to sort of move with them and think, okay, we have solutions. Now I can be really, we talked about being prescriptive a couple of minutes ago, but you can sort of plug it in and say, "Okay, I see you've got a kid. We could get you on a 529 plan, blah, blah. We could do that." Or you can say, "We can do a 529 plan. And you just mentioned that you've got a great aunt that's on her deathbed. Tell me more about her financial situation." Right? You can start really digging and finding out, well, how can we creatively solve this problem? We can sell a product, yes. And we can find some other solutions. Right. This conversation happens a lot with me with long-term care, because a lot of people don't have the money for a long-term care product. So we say, "All right, tell me about your family. Oh, you have 3 daughters. Wait, one is a nurse. Hold on a minute. Stop. Where does she live?" And we line it up. "Oh, you don't have any family? Tell me about your friend base." "Well, I have a lot of young friends. I'm a triathlete. I hang out with a lot of 20-year-olds. Great. Harness those relationships. Love on those people. Keep those young, fit friends around you." I mean, seriously, this is creative planning, right?
Mm-hmm.
You keep those young friends around you because you're probably going to need them later. And you know what? You're a good person, and they know you're a good person, and they're going to be there for you, right? So there are just so many places you can go in this business. It's outstanding.
You mentioned teamwork makes the dream work. You mentioned that in not so many words and a little differently. But you've been a leader in NAIFA. So share with us just your journey of how you've been able to inspire other leaders within NAIFA to do more than their, because we're not paid to do the work we do, right? But we're paid in so many other ways. And can you share with us, you've led from the front. How did you inspire others to lead and follow a mission or a vision that you might have had for our association?
That's always the challenge in a volunteer organization, for sure, because there are other things that pull people's focus. I think you've got to lead by doing. You've got to show them that it's possible. And with NAIFA, one of the things that was maybe most impactful, other than listening to their real concern about what might be going on, was to be able to show them that someone else in the country was doing it too. Someone who looked like them, who had an association the size of them, or they lived in a rural town like them, to say, okay, we know Joe over here, real similar situation. And then to make that connection, let's make an introduction to these two. It's no different than what we would do in our practice if we were trying to do some work with some various other planners, a trust attorney, a tax attorney, things like that. And you make those connections. And then make sure you're sort of hanging on with them and saying, did you get your answer? Did you see how they were working this program and how it really worked? And then they would turn around and say, I never would have thought to do a program like that. And so we can't fault people for not having the idea, because they probably got other ideas, but to sort of serve up the fact that it is successful somewhere, that was really helpful. And I think maybe in addition to that, just going out and being present. I traveled a lot with NAIFA in 3 or 4 years through California, definitely, and all across the country. And the important thing for me was to understand that all of these different places were someone's home. It was a place they grew up, or it was a place they loved, and to not in any way make them feel like, oh, you're from there? Yikes. It would be easy for someone to do that. And so sort of passing judgment in advance. And I'll share a quick little NAIFA story with you that I love thinking about this. I was invited to go and speak in South Dakota. I'd never been there before. So of course I wanted to go. I'd love to know about South Dakota. And at the time I was involved in membership pretty heavily. And we did an annual meeting and gave a talk, and you're great people, awesome people. Then they said, the next morning we're going to have a membership meeting. It's going to be at 8 a.m. And this is after the big party night, right? And I'm thinking, you're having a membership meeting? Oh, this is dead on arrival. This is not going to happen. I might as well just pack up and get out. But whatever, I'll show up, have a cup of coffee with the 1 or 2 people that are there that are serving on the board. And they had over 50 people there that morning. And I thought, okay, well, one of 2 things are happening. Either the weather is horrendous outside or the food is going to be great, but it has nothing to do with membership. And I was absolutely wrong. They all came in and said, we are here to learn how to grow. It blew me away. So always be willing to be surprised.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
We could talk to you for hours, and unfortunately, we don't have that time, but we do have the time to ask you one more question before we go to our lightning round. And my question is that you look at NAIFA today, and what is it that we need to do to continuously grow and be successful for the future?
I think what's always
from your perspective.
No, absolutely. There are a lot of things we can do and should do. I believe there is one thing that solidifies the commitment to NAIFA, and that is getting people involved in the legislative process. When they see how it affects their business and their customers, you're touching their heart. And when they see that NAIFA is the only one that provides that value, that legislative powerhouse of connections with our our representatives, provides the money, the voice. And I have taken people to the Hill for the first time. And I would suggest anyone who regularly goes, right? I've said this to many people, say, it's great that you go. You've been there year after year. That's great. I love it. Bring someone new, because they'll watch you doing the thing and you'll help them do the thing. And they will walk out of there, and it happens every time I'm there with
Every
someone
time.
brand new. Their eyes are so big, and I always hear this. I had no idea. Oh my gosh, I had no idea this is what we did, that this is who we are. This is amazing.
It's
And then
magical.
let's
Yeah.
bring it all the way back to the marketing piece.
Mhm.
You want to sort of solidify yourself in your community with your customers, and you come back and say, I was just on the Hill talking to Jimmy Panetta, blah, blah. We talked about XYZ, fiduciary rule and whatever. And I'm there representing you, and I'm there for you. And they go, wait a minute. And you do that too? That's awesome. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Suzanne, did we capture that? Do we have that in
Got that.
writing? Do we memorialize
Absolutely.
that?
Yep.
I think, I think people that serve in leadership have what we call creative and aligned thoughts with how they see things, and we all see things differently. I think one of the smartest coaches I've ever coached with or ever played for had the ability to take the most talented people in the room and help them see the one mission of all their collective talents. And that message you just said is pretty clear, is we need to be waving the flag. And if everybody, I've said it numerous times too, and I'll continue to say it until I no longer have breath, is that if everybody brought one person, NAIFA would double in size, right? If everybody brought just one, not 20, not 30, not 40, it makes the load very light. And so that's that one step at a time. And I think if we start that, who have you brought? Did you bring someone? Did you bring someone? And that idea of just, not just giving to the pack, not just going yourself, but how many of us have the capability of sponsoring someone else to come, right? And so we as a firm, we've done that every year. We sponsor somebody else who has not ever gone. We bring them, like years before, we brought Richie Marrero, and we do it from the diversity perspective. So we want to bring someone who's never been, not only that, but now give them an opportunity to mix in some of the diversity DEI stuff. I think it's very powerful, and thank you for saying, those words, because it needs to be heard, not only from the leaders at NAIFA, hopefully they're listening to this, but also the members of NAIFA or the future members of NAIFA. If we look at this is bigger than us. We're actually putting the grassroots in place for the people that'll be here for the next 20 years. Because our time is coming to a close, right? And we look back and we say, okay, have we laid the right groundwork, the right foundation for them to grow? And that is the essence of being a leader, because we move from success to significance then, Ms. Jim. And that is where we're going.
We used to worry about bringing a new member to a meeting and maybe the meeting was below par. We would worry about, well, if they came to the golf tournament and only 10 people were there, maybe they would look at NAIFA in a poor light. But the really interesting thing to me is you could have taken at any time in NAIFA's history a new member to the Hill, whether it be DC or the state houses. And that meeting's always the same. It's always mind-blowing. It's always eye-opening. That's a win.
All right, Suzanne, you want to kick it to the lightning round?
Yeah, it's time for the lightning round. I know Jill's going to kill it on this one. No problem.
So Jill, I don't know if you've watched any of the podcasts before this, but people may know your name, or they may Google, when they see this, they're going to Google you and they'll be like, oh, okay, got it. And they're going to feel like they know you. What this allows for people to do is really get to know you a little bit about things that are important to you and things that kind of just feel good, right? And so don't overthink it. We're not going to ask you any crazy political questions, or we're not going to ask you what you were doing when you were 8 years old and you weren't supposed to be there. Like, we're not going to ask you those questions. We're going to ask you some simple things just so people get to know you. And at the end, you already know the answer. Just whatever your gut tells you, that's typically the right answer. So we'll start off with something very easy. So you're in California, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, great. Okay, so if you're in California, I have to ask, then are you a Dodgers fan or a San Diego Padres fan?
There's not a chance either one of those.
Oh, okay.
No, because I'm gonna school you right now on California. There's Northern California and
Yes.
Southern California, and never the two shall meet. Not really true. Not really true. But yeah, I love the Giants.
The Giants.
I
Okay.
love the Giants. Yeah, I was raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, and so all the Bay Area teams they've got my commitment, my heart.
All right. So the Giants. Okay. So since you're in California, um, red wine or white wine?
Well, darling, it depends on what I'm having for dinner. Red or white, either one. But I'm actually, I think my preference is Mexican wine, which is tequila.
I was just
Okay.
going to say, she's a tequila aficionado. That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So then we have to ask, what is your favorite tequila?
I love Casamigos. I love it because it is so smooth. And I'm not a school drinker or a sorority drinker. I'm not that type of person. If I like the taste, I want to enjoy the event of the drinking with the people we're sharing the drink with. So Casamigos right now is my favorite.
There's 40 different kinds. Is there any one kind that really
Like a preference?
Yes.
Yeah, the one you come to my house with in your hand.
That's the best kind?
The free one.
That's the one I like.
The one I like.
Free one.
The
That's
gift.
good. All right. Your favorite food?
Sushi.
Sushi. All right. The one thing you're the proudest of over the last 25 years in this industry?
Hmm. That's actually kind of good timing because I think I am. This will be sort of strange. I'm proudest of building this practice, but I'm most proud of being able to do it on the heels of losing my daughter. She died the week before I started building this business. And I am most proud about how my family handled that, which was we continue to stay the course unless it stops working. And in our family, we're firm believers in if it stops working for you, you stop working for it. And not meaning that in a crass way, but if it stops fulfilling you or it stops, really touching you, touching your heart, then you can do something different. And navigating my daughter's loss through the scope of this business is probably probably allowed me to overcome the hardest part of that through the people I got to take care of. So it was sort of I think that's sort of a combination question/answer, but proudest to be here 25 years later and still feeling love of life and love for what I do.
If this was my first day at NAIFA and my first day in the industry, what advice would you give the 25 year ago you, if you had the opportunity to?
I would say go somewhere where you'll find NAIFA people and sit with someone you don't know and talk to them. Because everybody's got something great to share.
Last question for you. You could go back in history and have dinner with one human, whether they're living today or they passed away. One person, who would you have dinner with and why?
No, that's easy. Jessica Judd, my little girl.
Awesome. All right. You've moved us all in so many ways today. Hopefully people have taken notes and they get a chance to rewind and watch again. And thank you so much for your leadership. Are there any final comments that you would have for NAIFA Nation? We're all listening.
NAIFA Nation, boy, if you can get involved in any way, it will be the greatest thing you've ever done for yourself and your career. My family still talks about NAIFA events in the most positive way. You would be so lucky to get to know some of the people. Actually all of the people, but you probably won't get to know all of them. But the people who you get to know, you will feel like you've made lifelong friends.
Awesome. Suzanne, anything before I close this out?
I just echo everything you say. I love you, Jill. Thank you for doing
Love you
this.
too.
Great to see you. Yeah.
Thanks, Suzanne. Thanks, Chris.
Jill, thank you so much for being here. Suzanne, it's always wonderful to see you. NAIFA Nation, we'll see you next week, same time. Thanks for tuning in to Advisor Today's podcast, where we get an opportunity to uplift, promote, and propel all you as advisors and make the world a better place than we found it. So we'll see you next week, same time. See you around.
Thanks for joining us for NAIFA's Advisor Today podcast series. Make sure to subscribe to get future episodes. And if you're interested in coming on the show, let us know.